everybody. Go ahead and put a message in the chat if you can hear us. We're just waiting for y'all to kind of get in here to get started. I can see y'all watching, but nobody is chatting. So give me some comments. Give us some love. Tell Andrew he should give me some hair. That would be amazing. He's gonna have enough hair for 10 people. So
and 3 sheep.
Yeah, there you go. That's the magic. It's the sheep. Yeah. The Southern Outlier. Welcome. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Good having you. Mark, hey brother, what's up? Mark is going to be speaking at the Integrated Man Summit. I don't know
nice.
if you have you met Mark Iron or heard of Mark Iron?
No, not yet.
He is a master at hormones in the body, getting testosterone up, getting all your hormones balanced so you wake up ready to seize the day rather than tired and busted. And he is really good at it. He changed my life, and that's why we're having him come out. And he's coming all the way from Australia to hang out with, and you guys got to meet. A really cool guy.
Badass. What part of Australia are you coming from, Mark? Drop it in the chat. I just met with a guy at my last mastermind. I was guest speaking at a mastermind for millionaires, and I had this guy come out from Cairns, which they don't call it Cairns, they call it Cannes. So I was like, "Oh, you're from like Cannes, like the film festival?" And he was like, "Nah, mate, I'm from Cannes." And I was like, "Cannes, yeah, Cannes." It was one of those awkward English to English conversations.
Yeah, that's exactly how Mark speaks. Hey, brother. I'm not mocking you. You got an awesome accent, but still. Let's see. Who do we got here? Edward. Welcome, Edward. Good to have you in the chat. Andrew, good to have you. Alexander, Luke, Paul, Gian Pero. I love that. Are you in Italy? That would be amazing if you are. The only dating advice to listen to is you guys. I love you, Gian, even more now.
Queensland.
Yeah.
Man, all the best folks come from Queensland.
Nice. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I got to get over there. I've actually almost been there a couple times, and I keep not making it. And I hear it's the most dangerous place on the planet for nature. So I hear
everything in Australia wants to kill you.
That's what they say. Yes. So. Hey, Luis, good to have you, buddy. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Hopefully, you'll be at Tim's. Timothy, good to have you. Look like. You do. Yeah, that can happen, Alexander. There's all kinds of stuff that people say to you. He's saying when you use your line, you look like. So I have a little story, and just while everybody's logging in and getting started, we're going to start this conversation in a minute. We've got Andrew Bustamante from Everyday Spy on today, and I'm excited to have him. He is going to be talking about one of the things I did a video on that you guys love so much was letting all women go, and so we're going to be talking about how spies handle that same kind of energy, because that attachment to outcome is so powerful and it screws everything up, causes people to feel you pushing on them, pulling on them. So we're going to be talking to Andrew a little bit about that today, and whatever else he wants to talk about, because he is going to be speaking at the Integrated Man Summit coming November. He did an awesome talk last year, slayed the room, guys, slayed the room. So if you guys want to see Andrew speak, and you want to have that experience, definitely get out there live. It's the best way to do it. We do have online tickets also, but the online tickets will never compare to the live talk. And plus, we do a lot of conversation off camera that you guys just don't see. So I highly recommend you get out there. Now, with that said, I was about to do something else. I was reading that comment. He said, when you say your line, you look like trouble, she is going to say back, book you do. I don't know what that means, book, but I think she's saying you do. And it's funny because when I was first learning to go out and meet women, I was terrified. I was really attached to outcome, and I was really needy, and I didn't know what to do. And I learned this one line, you look like trouble. Very simple, easy to remember. It's the only thing I could say that I could not get stressed out over saying. Like everything else made me too nervous. So I would just walk up to women in bars, half on Red Bull and vodka to get my nerves down and a little amped up at the same time. And I just say, hey, you look like trouble. And it worked. It got me into all kinds of conversations, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes not so good. And so I think people remember that because it's kind of stuck in my brain and I say it all the time. I don't say it anymore, but I say it when I'm talking to these guys, I tell that story. So, okay, awesome. Well, we're about to get started. So everybody, welcome to the call. It's good to have you. So Andrew, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your awesome your former life, maybe a little bit, and how you ended up here today, and all the great stuff you've been doing. And before we get started, I'd like for them to know your background. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks again, Brian, for having me. And thanks for having me last year too, man. It's been an awesome, it's been about a year and a half now that there's been a super cool collaboration between Everyday Spy and Fearless. But my name's Andrew Bustamante. For those of you who don't know me, I am a former covert CIA intelligence officer. That's the formal terminology that we use at CIA to talk about undercover officers that serve around the world. So, the movies call us operatives. Some of the books out there call us agents, but we call ourselves intelligence officers, covert intelligence officers. And I run a business called Everyday Spy. Everyday Spy is where I get to take the real life skills and tactics that CIA taught me to shortcut my way through career, relationships, keep myself safe overseas, and I get to apply those skills into the lives of my clients, the lives of my customers, and that's really what Everyday Spy is all about. And we found about a year and a half ago, Brian, that so many of the teachings that I teach, from the cognitive, analytical, and practical operational sense, just goes hand in glove with the energy and instruction that you teach there with Fearless.
Yeah, Fearless is heavily about being, feeling. It's almost like there's instructions on how to ride a bike, instructions on how to dance, and then there's the vibration and the feeling and overcorrecting balance. And I work a lot on that balance. And then once you've got the balance, I see that as fuel.
Oh yeah.
Then when you say something, it has so much more impact. When you do something, they feel it more, and then that's where the technique comes in. Now the technique is supercharged. And I find when you don't have that balance and you do the technique, they smell right through it.
Yeah, what you're talking about there is really powerful because it's not just women, right? It's people in general. It's when you can smell a slime ball regardless of their gender, and you can tell when someone's around that you don't trust, regardless of their age or their education. There's so much that can be sensed when you open your senses to it. But what ends up happening is we're frontal cortex to death all through public school, and we're processed and systematized to the extreme, so that all the people around us can rank us and rack and stack us and measure us. So then by the time we ever actually become adults, we've been just twisted round and round. We don't know how to feel anymore, and we're over reliant on our brains, not realizing that to succeed as an adult, you have to feel first and then trust where your brain takes you next.
That is so true. I live here in Bozeman, Montana now. It's in the mountains, outdoor town. Everybody's outdoors here all the time.
Bozeman
Hiking,
is
camping.
gorgeous. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I live in paradise. And I've noticed that people here do have a lot more feeling. And I think it's because they're outdoors so much, because they're dealing with nature. Because when they hike, they have to be ready for anything. A grizzly bear, a moose coming around the corner. Things out here can kill you, by the way. It's not gang members. You're not going to get attacked by gang members here, but there are other things. So I just think it makes me think about our ancestors, man, and what their lives were like, because they were out all day doing stuff,
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because so much of our instinct is tied to the original human condition, right? We have developed technologically and empirically so much faster than we have evolved physically and emotionally. So, we're stuck carrying around smartphones and, constantly connected to the internet, even though our bodies and our brains and our eyes and our minds haven't evolved to the place where we know how to turn off just the constant noise and din and distraction of all that technology. So we still want to commune with nature. Evolutionarily, that's where we belong. But it's so much harder to do that because we've evolved much faster technologically than we are prepared to be as a species. And that's what causes that division, that divesting of where we want to be versus where we are, and why we so often feel trapped in our own heads, trapped in our own hearts, trapped literally behind screens and walls that we have volunteered ourselves into.
That is so true. And so I'm super curious, from your perspective as a CIA spy, I've had this conversation with a few people. I'm sure people on here would be interested. And by the way, guys, we're going to dive into this topic in a minute. A lot of my clients, they're looking to be more confident. They're looking to be more powerful. They're looking to be more bold. They don't want to just get women. They want to be the guy that deserves a woman. And there's a big difference. That's why I think people really love Fearless. So when you talk about this, do you think that it's only going to get worse from your perspective, CIA, everything, when the metaverse and stuff like that starts to take off?
Oh man, yeah. The world right now that we live in runs on currency, like money, actual currency. But currency is an artificial concept, right? Dollars and bills didn't used to exist. What used to exist was actual resources. That's why we call them resources. If you kill a buffalo and you have 3,000 pounds of meat, you actually have a true resource with a limited lifespan. So you have to trade that for fur and for rocks and for spears and for whatever else you're trying to trade it for, right? Because it's all very limited. The invention of the dollar or the yuan or the yen, these currencies don't actually have any lifespan. That's why they have to be kind of artificially used. Right? They can be manipulated to be more valuable. They can be manipulated to be less valuable. The same thing is true about almost all digital items out there, right? If you think about a book, think about an actual book, Brian. You and I used to go to a no shit library and have to put your hands on a book and sign, and it got a stamp in the back. Do you remember that? It got a stamp because there was only one book, only one in the library. Maybe there were 5 copies. Only 5 in the whole community library for that entire neighborhood or that entire school. Now, an ebook is infinitely replicable. And yet we don't just do it for free. We charge people a sum of money for replicating a digital book. Now that's the power of, artificial scarcity. There could be infinite copies, but we choose to focus on just a limited amount of copies, not because we're actually limited by anything other than the demand for people who want that book.
Yeah.
That is exactly what the metaverse is. That's what the whole world of what is the JPEGs that they now are charging people to buy.
Yeah, because they're putting them on the blockchain. They can say this is the first one.
Yeah,
because we can track it on the blockchain, right?
Correct.
But still, when it goes from your screen to mine, is it still the first one? It's a weird.
There's no value. Yeah, exactly. Right. So now we're just getting pulled in even deeper into this evolutionary super technology boost when our brains are still stuck in the days of stamping the back of library books.
Well, let's bounce off that into the confidence conversation and the dating category. Because all my clients are here for dating, confidence. Some of them are married and want to improve their relationships, so we do get a lot of those. And we get some women on here too occasionally that really are working on this too. And so the question I would have is when I look at people that have taught this stuff for years, they teach confidence as a technique, and it just made me think of what you were saying. Here's the technique, here's the system, here's the 50 millionth copy of how to do this exactly like this guy, do this exactly like this guy. But that doesn't work. That doesn't work, does it? And that's where this concept of letting all women go comes from. Because what's making guys do that, to go out in the world and think, if I act like Andrew, if I act perfectly, like I walk and talk like Andrew, girls are going to like me because he's a CIA spy. So I know he knows how to make girls like him. And they want it so bad that I feel like they're missing 80 or 90% of what's really going on. So they're saying your words. They're making eye contact. They're standing like you stand, but somehow it feels fake, like a social robot. And I'm curious. And so I have to teach guys to undo that and why that is. I'm curious from your perspective, and I know I don't know if you watched the video of Letting All Women Go.
Hopefully it's a great video.
Thank you. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah. So it's interesting because we were trained, CIA trains us to understand not just how our minds and bodies connect and how our minds and bodies work, but how other people interact with us, right? Because the human brain is really just a supercomputer of sorts, but it's a fairly consistent supercomputer. My brain works, right? Mechanically, it works the same way as your brain. You've been through completely different life experiences than I have, but your processor, your hard drive, your whatever, your supercomputer, your super chip, it works the same way that mine does. It's just electrical impulses from left to right on two different sides, two different hemispheres of the brain. And if your brain and my brain work the same way, so does every woman's brain that we've ever come in contact with. There might be some differences in what hormones are there, some differences in life experience, some differences in education, but the core operating system is the same. Only in very rare instances does somebody actually have a brain that's different than every other brain. So when you kind of come to learn that, you learn to understand that the way that brains interact, the way that human beings interact, it's not a matter of how it works. It's a matter of the life experience behind the person carrying that brain. So the reason I say that is because when we talk about confidence, the thing that so many people get wrong is that they talk about confidence as if confidence is something that applies to you. Confidence is not something that applies to you. Confidence is something that someone else interprets when they observe you. It's two completely different things. The language that you know is what you know, but the language that someone else thinks you speak can often be something completely different. It's why people in the South and Southern United States, they speak English, but someone far north has a hard time understanding what they're talking about. If you've ever listened to anybody from Massachusetts, you have a hard time understanding what they're talking about sometimes, right? You're all speaking the same language, but that person in Massachusetts thinks, I speak perfect English. That person in Alabama looks at that person from Massachusetts and says, I don't understand what you're saying, right? It's all about the other person. That's what CIA teaches us. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you feel. It doesn't matter what you determine to be true in your version of reality. What matters is what the other person sees in you. That is how they interpret the truth of their reality.
See, this is this is a discussion I think we could go pretty deep with, because what I often teach is and you might have got this from that video, that it all starts with you feeling you. So it's all about you. You're saying it's all about the other person, and I think there's an overlap here.
Absolutely.
There's a sense of like, oh, we're talking about two different things, but in reality, I can't make it all about the other person unless I'm in relationship with me. So I have to be able to be in my body, and I want you, if you disagree with me, tell me. I want to be fully in my body so I can feel with my body all the emotions and sensations you're feeling. Because if I'm not in my body relaxed, I can't feel you. All I can do is analyze you.
Right. And to pile onto what you're saying, Brian, when you're in your body and when you're relaxed, guess how I'm going to interpret that? As a confident person.
Yes.
I'm going to interpret that as a confident person. Even though when you're standing there, you may not feel confident. You may feel like, okay, I'm trying to discover confidence. I'm trying to calm myself down. I'm trying to work on me. But just by when I observe you, seeing you not focused and not fidgety and not showing signs of nervousness, what I feel when I see you, what I pick up from you, the energy I pick up from you is, who is this confident person? Right? So often we think confidence is how we carry ourselves, how we walk, how we talk, how we swagger. No, swagger just comes across as arrogance, not confidence. Confidence is the person who's not obsessing with what the world thinks about them. That's what I love about your teaching.
Yeah. I do see people that they're so boastful and so big because they don't want you to see who's under all that noise. That's the best way I can put it. And so I would say that you have to make it all about you until you can stop making it all about you, because you can feel you fully. You've accepted you, and now you can make it all about the other. And
yeah,
go ahead.
Well, yeah, because the difference, the gap, when I say making it about the other person and you say making it about yourself, you're totally right. There's overlap there. We're saying kind of two versions of the same coin. Because what I'm saying is that what we're taught is that when somebody is coming to you, when you want to turn a patriot into a traitor, right? That's what spying is all about. You're finding somebody who their government trusted them with secrets. And now you're gonna convince them that it's a good idea to start lying to their government and giving you their secrets instead. The only way that you make that happen is by making that other person believe that you are trustworthy and honest and you're going to protect them and you're going to take care of them. It's the ultimate con, right? And a con man, you know what the term con is short for, right?
Confidence man, right?
Confidence man. Exactly right. But you know what? That con man's a total phony, a total fake. So there's two ways to show confidence. You can either fake it, which so many books teach us, right? Fake it to make it or whatever else is out there. Or you can actually be confident. You can tune into yourself and actually become the person who's confident. Your whole lesson on letting all women go, that is true confidence. That's not you faking confidence. That is you choosing to truly let it all go. And as soon as you can let everything else go, everybody around you is stuck on something. They look at you, you're stuck on nothing. To them, that makes you look just invincible.
So I'm going to give two scenarios, and then I want to hear how the CIA handles teaching a human being to be able to do this, because that's what I think is the magic. Is the magic is it's the hardest lesson to learn for anybody, just about in social skills, and so I know that either the CIA is being careful to pick people that already have this, or they have to have a way to make sure they maintain it, train it in. So if a guy walks up to a girl, or let's say in your case, somebody that you need to get secrets from, and he's obsessing in his brain, like he's sitting there, like he's got some of these guys, and you guys on the call, I want you to comment on this if you can relate to this. You're sitting there at a coffee shop or a bar or a nightclub or wherever you see the beautiful women in your town, and you see them walk by, and there's a part of you going, God, I'd do that girl. Oh my God, I wish I could get that girl. Oh, she's so hot. Oh, and there's a part of you that just, with every thought, it compounds. This obsession gets a little stronger. How do I get her? Oh, I got to go talk to her. Then you take 2 more minutes to talk to her. And in that 2 minutes, you're compounding more anxiety, more fear. You're thinking about what you're going to say. You're no longer even in tune with your body. You're up here somewhere just thinking about all the scenarios that could go wrong, getting ready. Then you go up with either this really pulled back energy, hey, hi, don't mean to bother you, because you're afraid to commit because you're terrified, or this bombastic energy, hey, how you doing? And you're completely out of calibration. And immediately it's a turnoff for the woman. And guys do this day in and day out, burn out until they watch that video that I said. And then some of them say that made me cry, because I give them permission to stop all that noise in their head and to relax and build a relationship with themselves. What does the CIA do for an agent that's having these kind of problems, that's starting to go, maybe he was good for a while and then something's going wrong?
Yeah. So first, they don't let us go wrong, right? So they drill us and they train us and they put us through simulations that far exceed anything that would even resemble real life, right? They put us through such incredibly stressful, demanding scenarios that when we see anything even close to that in the real world, we know how to respond to it. So only after we've kind of proven ourselves under extreme stress do they let us run loose in the wild to actually try to execute, because the risk is too great, right? Coming on to a girl in a bar with a little bit too much energy, that might get you slapped or might get a drink thrown in your face. But more realistically, it's just going to get a girl to like walk away. But when you come onto a general or a nuclear weapons scientist or a foreign dignitary too strong, that's the kind of thing that's likely to get you arrested and put in jail, because they like, hey, why is this American in Moscow talking so aggressively to this Iranian? Let's just wrap this guy up in jail and let him sweat it out. We'll give him 72 hours and see if he has words to say instead, right? And you don't want to end up in a freaking Russian jail trying to answer why you were too strong when you came on to the Russian ambassador. That's a bad place to be.
It's a horrible place to be. Dear God.
It's a horrible place to be. Yeah. So the way that they train us is they teach us very early on, not from our heart, right? You're training people from the heart, which makes for a permanent change. We train people from the brain, because CIA is not looking for a permanent change. CIA is looking for a very temporary operation. And then that temporary operation is supposed to come, go, do its thing, and turn into the next temporary operation, because we're disposable units. That's the thing that people don't realize. CIA is basically just like the military, only with a different mission. Soldiers are trained to get shot and die. CIA officers are trained to basically burn out and crash. They just want us to burn out and crash like on a safe landing field. So they're going to run us as hard as they can until we basically break. It's a little bit like a racehorse, if you know anything, or a greyhound, if you know anything
You
about the
know,
race world.
yeah, your honesty there is very refreshing. I really
Mm.
appreciate it. That's because I mean, that's a very honest and bold statement to make, and I can see where it's totally true at the same time.
Yeah, you learn that on the inside, right? The movies make us look like we're awesome. In real life, we're just disposable units.
You mean you're not Jason Bourne?
Even Jason Bourne, they tried to dispose of him, remember?
That's true. That's true. They did. That's what the first movie started.
Yeah.
Threw him overboard or something. Yeah.
Yes. So for that reason, that's what's so different about my experience versus your passion, right? I've learned so many similar lessons to what you teach, but I've learned them from the pointy end of the spear where you're teaching people how to hunt.
Yeah, for some guys, the pointy end of the spear is a woman. That's their biggest fear in life. I think I told you about this last time, but for those of guys that didn't hear it, I had a friend that was a Navy SEAL, and he said he had friends that were Navy SEALs. He says you can ask them to take that machine gun at the top of the hill, but you ask them to go talk to that cute girl at the bar, they lose their mind and they won't do it. And I always thought about it a lot, and I thought, yeah, you can't shoot the girl at the bar. You have to actually relate to her.
Exactly right, man.
So yeah, that sucks. But I mean, it doesn't suck. I'm glad they can't shoot the girl at the bar, but it sucks that they go through that. So let's jump forward. Let's say the person's starting to get some sense of, I like myself. I don't need a woman's validation. Matter of fact, I tell guys the first thing you want to learn is to be able to walk away from a hot girl when she's not treating you well. Just don't try to get laid just because she's hot. Like, learn to say no. So let's say we got a guy that's pretty confident. He's pretty solid. What, from your perspective, I'm really curious, does the CIA teach to really relate and get to know people better? Like, what is, because you got some really good techniques you told me before, and I'm really curious what else you got.
Yeah, absolutely. So we go through a process called sense making. Sense making is it's an interrogation term that was actually coined back during Vietnam, but it's this entire systematic process. If you Google sense making, you'll find it most likely. But it's this entire systematic process where you understand how to anticipate and then counter predictable verbal and nonverbal cues in a conversation. So what they train us to do is basically understand how sense making works and then tune in so we can see those verbal and nonverbal cues that indicate discomfort, aggression, hostility. It's a phase that we call the competition phase of sense making. So when you've got a guy who's super confident, when I watch, right, because it's mostly they're observational skills. I know how to observe them in my target. I know that my target is an untrained target is passively observing me. So I'm actively observing my target's passively observing me, and then all of those nonverbal and verbal cues are giving me information so that I can make an assessment about how that person is responding to my approach. When I watch other people, it's much easier because I'm not the one on the X. When I watch a confident guy, essentially what I see is a guy who naturally follows those sense-making steps because they're passively observing the verbal and nonverbal indicators that show them where they are in a conversation. When I watch a guy who's suffering, it's usually because he's not able to pick up those verbal and nonverbal cues, and he is most definitely not aware of the verbal and nonverbal cues he's communicating to the woman. So the reason that I feel like your lesson is so powerful is because when you let go, essentially, you don't really get anxious anymore because you're not concerned about approval. You're not concerned about acceptance. You're just being you. You're just in the moment. And because of that, so much of the negative verbal and nonverbal cues that you don't even realize you're sending, you stop sending them. So then the other person stops receiving them, which makes them that much more open because they're not getting hostile vibes. They're not getting, you call it pushing energy, I think is the word you use, Brian. The words that I use are hostile, aggressive, high threat, unknown, right? That's how an untrained person kind of interprets that energy. Is this person here to mug me? Are they here to sell me something? Are they going to touch me when I don't want them to touch me? Like, they just feel gross to be around. All of that comes because the person who's talking is not aware of the intense amount of information they're communicating verbally and non-verbally.
Oh, it's insane. They used to say 93% of communication is nonverbal, and I used to think that was crazy until I got into this industry. And the more
Yeah.
we do a lot of high def video observation and study the smallest social cue in high def video, and I've been doing that for years. And the more I do it, the more I'm shocked at how much we're seeing we don't even know we're seeing, and that's
Yeah.
where instincts play. You say instincts, instincts. You don't trust your instincts. I'm like, I don't know. If you got good instincts, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason they're going off. There's a big reason.
Yeah. You got to trust them when you know that they can be trustworthy. But then some of us have honed our instincts in the school of mom's basement, which is not a very
Yeah,
good training ground.
no, not at all. It's terrible, terrible training ground. Don't listen to mom for dating advice, please, guys. It's the worst, worst, and especially for being a spy. That would probably get you killed fast.
Yeah.
Um, so I had a lot of curious questions that don't relate to dating. And my mind keeps going to them. There's and but I want to hear what you, in your experience as a spy, I really want to hear some tips you would give guys to go out and meet women. I mean, let's say they've done this letting all women go and they're feeling pretty good, but they just want to know what would you do, because you've obviously spoken to who knows how many people in the field for real, right? So
Yeah. So the thing that's so powerful about the concept of letting go, not just letting women go, but letting the outcome go, to borrow your word, right? I love this idea of letting the outcome go, because the outcome is an unknown, right? We're taught that, very similar to what you guys teach at Fearless. You have to shake a lot of hands before you actually find the person who's willing to trade secrets for alcohol, or secrets for money, or secrets for privilege. It's something that's common to us. You don't go out there. It's not like you don't meet somebody and then think you're going to turn them into a spy overnight. It takes hours, weeks, days, months of cultivating the person in the right direction. And they have to be predisposed, anyways, to actually being able to run clandestine operations. Because if you think about it, not everybody's cut out to be a good spy. Some people have a bad memory. Some people can't follow the instructions. The last thing you want to do is tell somebody they're supposed to do a dead drop and write in code on liquid soluble paper, and they don't remember any of the instructions, and then they write the wrong code on normal paper and it gets intercepted somewhere, right? Because instead of putting it in the right place, they just put it on a bench somewhere and some police officer picked it up. It's really hard to find the right fit. So instead of focusing on the outcome, we learn to accept that the outcome is the ultimate unknown variable. So instead, you just focus on the process. You focus on the system. You focus on the routine. You take joy in espionage. And it's really fascinating, Brian. I think I was at a Fearless experience, actually, guest speaking at either Tim's or a Fearless experience. And you had this comment, either you or one of your coaches was like, you have to just enjoy your time with the woman. If you're not enjoying the time that you're standing there, enjoying her look, enjoying her smell, enjoying the conversation, if you're not genuinely enjoying that moment, then what are you doing? Because the outcome isn't guaranteed, but that moment is. And that's exactly how we're taught to approach espionage. Enjoy the act of espionage. Enjoy the fun of doing things in secret, because getting the spy isn't guaranteed. It's a long way down the road before you're actually going to find out if that works or not. But everything you can do right now to enjoy yourself is going to show that target that you're targeting. It's going to show them that you're calm, collected, capable, confident, using their own terminology in their head, even though you might feel like you're a liar and a fake and you're really just trying to trick this person. That's not what they're going to interpret when they see you. What you feel doesn't necessarily define their reality.
So you have to enjoy the journey, is what you're saying, and
Absolutely.
that's a basic spiritual concept. Goals are great to point you in a direction, but if you're not enjoying the journey, then the goals become meaningless and empty, and you'll get what you want, and then you'll probably end up wondering why you're even doing what you're doing, and then you go to another thing, do the same thing, and another thing, do the same thing, and you'll burn out. And so I imagine that happens a lot in the spy profession. I'm sure that because you guys are pushed so hard, there must be a lot of burnout.
And the burnout doesn't look pretty for us, man. It's something that a lot of elite career fields experience. Your lawyers, your doctors, your high power executives. You turn to chemicals, you turn to alcohol, you turn to self-destructive habits, all on this road to try to just maintain until you finally have a break of some sort, and it all falls apart.
I'm curious. Do you think that's because a lot of spies are doing stuff where they're lying, and there's a guilt involved? Do you think there's a buildup of guilt that they don't know how to process?
Absolutely. There's guilt that goes along with the acts that we commit, but then there's also a certain guilt that goes along with the fact that we don't really have consistent ethics, right? We are recruited in part because we're morally flexible. That's a term that we use at the
Yeah.
agency. There's moral flexibility. You may never want to hurt anybody, but yet you're going to hurt somebody, because if the mission requires that you hurt somebody to save an American, you'll hurt foreigners all day long to save Americans. That's what you signed up for. That's the job of national security. It's not that much different than what gives soldiers PTSD, right? They don't ever want to point a gun at any human being, and then they find themselves pointing a gun and killing a human being, and then doing it again and again and again, and then they come back to, downtown Kansas or Nebraska where they grew up, and now they have to cope with these memories of what they did, and cope with the fact that they didn't see anything wrong with those memories, or they didn't see anything wrong with those actions when they were in the battlefield, but now they're stuck at home and nobody's helping them process through it. It's a very demanding and destructive cognitive experience.
So this makes me think of a specific individual, or several specific individuals I've met over my life. I'm thinking of 3 actually. They didn't seem to have any guilt. 2 of them were spies. Like you, they were current active spies. One I had met while he was in the Secret Service, and I met him later. He was out of the Secret Service in another branch of the government. He couldn't tell me, and you could see the rush in his face for what he did. He couldn't talk about the things he did. There was almost it was odd. It was an odd rush. The other one said, it's never bothered me. He told me straight out, it's never bothered me what I have to do. He says oddly enough, I just go to work. I do my job. He said he'd been a spy for many, many years. And then there's my stepfather. So a career criminal, true sociopath, very dark individual, and super level-headed, never lost his cool, calm as a cucumber all the time.
Yeah.
And it gives me chills when I think about him today, because he could do some nasty stuff. I remember him burning down a house for money. I remember the FBI out in front of our house trying to catch him, and they could never catch him because he was so careful and calm. And did you run into individuals like that? You had to have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What you're talking about are the outliers, right? Like there's always going to be on any bell curve, there's always going to be outliers. And even if you're talking about a bell curve of sociopathy or a bell curve of psychosis, you've got the average person who's a sociopath, but then you have on one extreme of the bell curve, very high functioning sociopaths. And then on the other end of the bell curve, extremely low performing sociopaths, right? The same thing is true with psychopaths. Then in the bell curve, in the core of the bell, you've got your average psychopath. At the very far right, though, you have your extremely high performing psychopath. A lot of times what elite organizations, your SEALs, your Green Berets, your Delta teams, your CIA, your FBI, what they're looking for is that outlier in both sociopathy and psychopathy. They're looking for those people who can perform at a very high level, but have that extreme flexibility, because that's a person who has a very long career lifespan, a long career utility. Because if they can do atrocious things and go to sleep at night, then they're going to be able to do atrocious things for a longer period of time. The person who's more in the center of the bell curve only has a limited utility. And if you don't know the word utility or the word utilization as it pertains to human resources, that's another good Google thing to look up, because that's exactly how corporations and how the federal government looks at individuals. What is the utilization score of a person's career? What is their long-term utility? So that's something that's really important. And when you talk about those 2 examples from the Secret Service, and then your other friend who's a career spy, and your dad a career criminal, your stepdad a career criminal, those are all really solid examples of what it looks like when you come face to face with somebody who's in that far extreme, high functioning sociopath or high functioning psychopath.
Yeah, he was quite an interesting individual because I'm sure he lived to be close to 90, and I think the only thing he went to jail for was drunk driving. And that
So
was
there's this awesome book out there, and there's a couple really cool interviews too. If you look up why the world needs psychopaths, if you look that up, you'll find your way
interesting.
to,
I would never thought of such a comment. Yeah.
yeah, there's awesome resources out there. And history proves why you want a psychopath, right? Because in some scenarios, the psychopath is exactly the person that you need to do the thing that has to be done to secure success for the masses. So
Well,
it's
a tip
not,
of the spear in a sense.
yeah, right. So who do you want as a Navy SEAL? Do you want somebody who's like a conscientious objector, or do you want someone who borders on the edge of psychopathy, right?
Yeah.
Who do you want to have be the person who, leads the fight in a war for revolution, or in a war in the beginnings of after 9/11, the first handful of people to go into Afghanistan? Those are not normal people, right? They need to be just a little bit off kilter.
Especially the ones that are looking forward to it. It's an odd feeling to run into somebody like that.
Yeah. They're the
So
ultimate example to your world. They're the ultimate example of letting go. They've let
yeah,
go of guilt, shame, embarrassment. They've let go
but
of
I
it
also
all.
wonder if they let go of their humanity, their
True.
emotions. So there's a price to pay when because at that point, that how much of their heart are they really feeling? How much of it is just blackened? And could a person like that ever turn it back on, or have they
Mm,
done so many heinous acts that to turn it back on would just be, horrible for them?
yeah.
It's an interesting. These are deep philosophical questions tonight, guys. Um, and sorry, I had to go down that route. I was kind of curious. So let's talk about your work a little bit and how your work at the Integrated Man Summit, what you're going to be doing that could really benefit them, not just with their dating life, but with their personal life. Because a lot of our clients aren't just working on dating life; they're working on businesses, they're working on confidence, they're working on getting healthy, they're working on maybe even like I said, business, building a perfect relationship, getting that body of their dreams. So there's a lot of skills that require them to step into a lot of tension. And I know, I guess CIA agents are pretty good with tension, I'm guessing. And I think for them to understand, you're going to be, first off, guys, he's going to be speaking multiple days, most likely all 3 days. He's going to be building on his topics with you. As you guys talk to him at the break, he's going to find out what you really want to know and help to build more on those topics to give you exactly what you want. So if you guys want to come to the Integrated Man Summit, I'm going to put a link in while he's talking. Check out the link, and you can either sign up online or come live, meet him in person, and meet everybody else in person too. And I think this might be one of the last Integrated Man Summits. We're still figuring out next year, so don't miss out. Okay, guys. So let's dive into that. Let's hear about some of the stuff you think that could really help these guys, or what you'd be talking about, that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of my favorite, I do a lot of events every year, Brian, and the Integrated Man Summit and the Fearless Experience, those are two of my favorites when I get invited to come out and participate, because there's so much overlap with the systems and the techniques that CIA has taught us to cope with stress, to manage anxiety, to handle tension, the strategic way that the tactical tools they give us to read minds, detect lies, go through verbal and nonverbal cues. There's a process that we call mirroring, where we actually learn to take subconscious control of how another person is acting around us in order to diffuse their tension, diffuse or disarm their concerns or their nerves. So there's all this just really interesting. For me, it's very step by step. It's very process driven. It's systematic. It's proven by hundreds of years of experience in the field. What we do to disarm spies, or what we do to disarm targets and convert them into trusting, loyal assets for us. It's really amazing to see how well that marries up with a lot of the energetics and a lot of the open exercises that you teach men to come into themselves. Because where we're trained to do it for the functional purpose of national security, you're essentially training men to do it for themselves, to do it in a way that's collectively healing. Whereas what we're doing is we're artificially creating a relationship so that we can essentially get someone to compromise themselves. So it's really powerful to see I often talk that there's two sides, right? There's two sides to anything. There's a yin and a yang always. There's motivation and there's manipulation. I was taught the world of manipulation, but the same skills you use to manipulate people are also the skills that you can use to motivate people and motivate yourself. And that's one of the things I really like about Tim's is being there, being in that community, watching the men bond, watching the coaches bond with the men, watching the models come through and work with the men and tap into parts of them they didn't realize were there. It's just a refreshing opportunity to be reminded about how constructive and powerful these tools can be.
Yeah, very, very much so. I appreciate that. What I want to do is take a few questions from some of the people. I want you, some of the people watching, observing. Can you go ahead? I don't want to go back and look through the chat again, guys. So I haven't had a chance. I usually have somebody that's monitoring that, pulling out the best questions. So are you good for a few questions?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
Awesome. Let's do it. So go ahead. If you got a good question you wanted to have answered from earlier, pop it in now. Let's see what you guys got, and then we'll go from there. In the meantime, I will look back and see. Oh, they're already coming in. What do we got here from Igor? Hey, Igor, it's been a long time. Hey, buddy. Hey, Andrew, I've become a big fan of your emails. I was surprised to see I used mbti. I don't know what that is, but that sounds interesting. Can having a basic knowledge of it to assess both yourself and others make a significant difference in ordinary life?
Yeah, Igor, great question, and I'm so glad you're enjoying the spy journal, the emails that I put out there. So for Brian and anybody else who doesn't know what MBTI is a personality tool. It's called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator.
I know what that is.
Yeah, but once we say it out loud, people normally know what it is, but sometimes it goes by MBTI. But to answer Igor's question, yes. MBTI is a tool, and it's a tool with a bunch of flaws. It's not the best, most empirically accurate personality tool out there. However, it's extremely simple, extremely easy, and it gives a common language that spies, that officers and operators can use with one another so that we can quickly define an individual, define their core personality traits. So that's why MBTI is so popular at the agency. When you understand MBTI, then you can actually start looking for hallmark behaviors in other people, as well as hallmark behaviors in yourself that allows you to then define yourself using that same vocabulary or define someone else using that same vocabulary. That's what makes it such a useful tool, because now you can assess key behaviors that make you confident that someone is extroverted or introverted or sensory or thinker or judger or perceiver. And it does absolutely make a big difference because it changes the way you talk to everybody. You can start tailoring how you talk to people based on the Myers-Briggs type indicator that you suspect they are. So it's a long answer, Igor, but a fantastic question.
It's an interesting answer. The reason I don't really know a lot about Myers-Briggs, I've always used one, emotional, physical, sexuality, and suggestibility, which I learned in hypnosis college many years ago. It's not well known. It's out from the Hypnosis Motivation Institute out of Tarzana. And it was the PhD that the founder of the institute did his PhD on. He did his PhD on this whole concept he come up with. And we used to use that super successfully in hypnosis all the time, figure out the client. And I found it to be really good, but I've heard and seen amazing things from Myers-Briggs, everybody. It's probably the gold standard that's out there. So let's move on. See, the light's changing. I've lost my son. I need to get some good lamps in here. So, okay, here we go. Do you advise any books to learn a bit of your craft?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Cristiano. So there's the books out there on tradecraft are kind of they're not few and far between, but they're not normally called tradecraft. They're usually a memoir of some sort. So one of the best to read is Moscow Rules. The Moscow Rules is a great book out there. It was written by Joanna Mendez and her husband. And it's just a fantastic exploration of how spies use tradecraft in some of the harshest environments out there, in this case, in Moscow. There's other books out there that teach you without calling it spycraft, but they teach you how spies think. So one of those is Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow is an excellent book that teaches you how human beings think how you can anticipate their thoughts, how you can predict their thoughts. Blink is another excellent one by Malcolm Gladwell that talks about
Really good.
how you can stay one step ahead of human thinking. Those are some of the core reading materials that we're given when we first enter the farm. And from that foundation, they give us more classified training on how to actually manipulate people even further using those core tenets that we see in both Kahneman and Gladwell's books.
Yeah, I loved Blink. It's been years since I've read that book, but it shocked me how he could. That's the book I'm pretty sure where he could predict when somebody's going to get divorced by the amount of resentment. And he said
Yeah,
to the month, like, you're going to get
incredible,
divorced.
right?
And yeah, it's like we are more computer than you realize, programmed like.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's why I'm a big, get free of that ego as much as you can, because that thing is really directed your life if you're attached to it. Okay, let's see what else we got here. What do we got here? I haven't even read this one. So, would you guys ever do any in-person events near the Sacramento area?
Sacramento's up in Northern California, I want to say, isn't
Yeah,
it?
close to San
Yes.
Francisco. Yeah.
So I know we've hosted joint events together down in LA. I would love to host something up in Northern California. I think some of the bigger challenges are just we go where the audience goes.
Yeah.
And LA is such a fantastic place to be. The women are beautiful. The setting is beautiful. The city is so operational. It's just amazing to go out there and do some spycraft. I've been up to like San Francisco and Chinatown, and it's a good operating zone, but the police presence is much stronger, and the weather is much more unpredictable. So
Have you
who
done any in New
knows?
York? Because New
I
York
have not done.
seems fun. Seems like a little playground
Yeah, so
for what you do.
New York, Chicago. I've worked in Chicago. I've worked in New York. I've worked in DC. The challenge is that when you do spy actions and spy activities in cities that have a high police presence, it's a very low margin of error. So it's hard to take people there to learn because they may screw something up and the cop thinks they're doing a drug deal, and then your student gets arrested and nobody has fun with that.
So it's better to take them to Milwaukee to start. Work your
Exactly.
way up.
Exactly right.
Yeah. We got very little police presence out here. You can come out here, Bozeman,
Yeah, Bozeman
Montana.
would be pretty awesome. Yeah, you got all the same things going for you.
Yeah. But not like Milwaukee. Oh my God, there's the place. Just kidding, of course. Let's see. What do we got here? Okay, Andrew mentioned triads. I remember you talking about that. Health, wealth,
Yeah.
relationships. For relationships, Andrew gave sex, communication, and appeal. What are the triad components for health and wealth?
Yeah, so the triad components, so
And are you
Paul,
going to go more into that this year? Are you going to dive into that some more or no?
oh yeah, we're going to go through the whole thing all over again. Absolutely. Because these triads are built off the national security triangle. So,
Okay.
so for sure, say, Paul, if you want to dig deep into these, come back to Tim's, man, because we're going to have tons of time to go deep into this. But if you're just looking for the words, then for health, the triad is mental, physical, and consistency. If you're looking for just wealth, it's income, network, and control. Those are your three triads. If you want to know what the hell we're talking about and how all of this applies to you, for sure, come to Tim's and we'll be able to walk you through the full lesson. Great question, Paul.
Yeah, he doesn't really, for those of you that have never seen Andrew speak, especially at Tim's, or you haven't seen the videos, he doesn't hold back. He gives a lot of value. He gets the room very excited. People go nuts. He gets mobbed at the breaks. So, this is a great opportunity for you to meet him in person, but hey, do what works best for you. But I'd say I'm always the mindset that I favor. Like, I don't know how many lives I've got. Maybe I've only got one. Maybe that's it. I've only got so many years on this planet. My buddy talks about this. He says, when I want to do something, I go do it, because when I look back, I don't want to have any regrets. I want to have a full life. And so
you want to do it all the way. Yeah. Leave
Yeah.
nothing on the table. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, so many people are so comfortable sitting in a cubicle their whole life. It's crazy to me. Like, you don't feel the pain of that. I guess that's why they have pot and beer at the end of the night. So, okay, let's see what we got here. Hey guys, my question is, how can you let something go and still care enough not to mess up in the moment? This is a great question. It's one that I love to talk about, but I'd much rather hear what you have to say.
I was actually going to tee it up for you first, man, just because I'm curious to hear your answer. I'll make my answer short, Brian, so we can both pile on. How about that?
Okay, sounds good.
So for me, when you're letting something go, you have to understand that what you're letting go of is a specific outcome. That's really the thing that you're letting go. And you're letting it go because the outcome isn't guaranteed in the first place. So if you think about it, you've got a situation where if you get the outcome you want, you're going to be happy. And if you don't get the outcome you want, you're going to be unhappy. So it's a very binary outcome. If you let go of the outcome altogether, you still may not get the outcome, but that's okay because you weren't looking for it. So you're still happy. And if for some reason letting go of it makes the outcome attract to you anyways, you get the outcome, which means you're happy. So it's a net positive on one side. If you let it go, you'll either get it or you won't get it, but both results make you happy in the end. If you're fixated on the outcome, you'll either get it or you won't get it. And one of those two outcomes makes you extremely unhappy. So you only have a 50% win rate versus a 100% win rate. For me, that's kind of how my ones and zeros process in my brain, Brian, but walk me through that in a more energetic way.
Yeah, I look at everything. I'm a big believer in spirituality in a sense, not grounded practical spirituality, not this woo-woo, let's go chant and jump in a circle. Not that that's not fun, but Buddha said the source of all suffering is attachment. The less attachments you have, the less you suffer. And so as you look at an outcome, if you're attached to the outcome, you're guaranteed suffering. If you get it, there's the responsibility of dealing with it and not losing it. Let's say I get my $1 million and I've been dreaming about it my whole life, or my perfect blonde. And now I got to keep her. Oh my God, I got to make her happy. And you're guaranteed suffering from the attachment. If you're unattached to the outcome and you're free, and what that means is, I believe at a much higher level that there's something controlling everything. The planets don't bounce randomly off of each other. They work in perfect time. So much so that we can track a year, we can track a day, we can track minutes, we can track seconds. So there's something controlling everything. And I believe that thing that's controlling everything is going to, if I'm unattached to outcome, I have this weird, crazy belief that it's going to give me that or something better. So that even means if I don't get this hot blonde, that means there's probably a better girl around the corner for me. If I don't make my $1 million on this date, that's because there's something better over there. And every time in my life I've surrendered to this has been 100% true. So when I'm unattached to outcome and I say, this is what I want, and I focus on it, I visualize it, I picture it, then I let it go and say, now give me what you think I should have. Then what happens is almost magic to me. All kinds of amazing things happen. And then I can truly care about the individual in front of me. Now I want the best for that person, for me. Yeah. If I'm not the right person for her, or she doesn't want to have fun with me for some reason, or it's not meant to be, then let's end it fast and move to the next person and the next person. If I walk up to 10 women, I'm not attached at all. Bam, 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 bam. I can read all their cues. I can feel how they feel. I can be connected to them because I'm not worried about what they think of me. So I can be fully present for them. And that actually increases the odds of success through the roof because I'm no longer worrying about the future. And so that's in a nutshell. I could probably talk for days on that topic.
Well, dude, so it's surprise, surprise. Buddhists have it figured out, right? I mean, these are people who have been studying the human condition for millennia. And I thought that was a super solid example when you talked about human suffering. The more attachments you have, the more you suffer. Such a simple but powerful concept, dude.
Yeah, and the problem is a lot of this new thought stuff, they teach you to focus on what you want intensely and focus on it. That's great if you're unattached to outcome, but they need to talk about the fact that if you do that attached to outcome, you're in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, it's true.
So there you go. This one's for you, buddy.
Thanks, Jay. My favorite kind of question.
Here we go. What do spies do to attract women if that task was assigned? You got to seduce this beautiful woman to get secrets out of her or something.
Yeah. So often, Lewis and Brian, you're going to laugh at this too. So we do go over sexpionage. That's one of the core lessons that I have.
I love the name. That's a fantastic name.
Yeah, we absolutely teach the tenets of sexpionage. And to be very honest here, very, very rarely are you sent on an operation where you have to attract a beautiful woman to yourself. More often, you're attracting a woman who is not beautiful, a woman who has gone through, a rough and troubled existence because life was not easy for her. She's a large woman. She's politically connected. She's got something going for her other than her looks. that made her kind of the key person to have these secrets or to have this incredible influence over outcomes in a terrorist network, in a proliferators network, in a drug dealers network, whatever it might be. But so one of the first things that we do is we try to understand the woman and how she views herself. Because if you try to go in and you're too different, if you're too much of an outlier from what she's accustomed to, then immediately she's not going to trust you. It's a process that we call know, like, trust. Oftentimes when you first discover someone who's new, if they are too different from what you're accustomed to, you immediately distrust them. So you actually have to approach somebody in a place in a place that's consistent with what they're comfortable with feeling. It's why when you go up to a super hot girl and you're super nervous, she doesn't like being around you, because she's used to being around other people who are not full of nervous energy, because they are also usually hot, beautiful, successful people. So when you come in and you're all nervous Nelly, that energy is very off kilter from what they're used to. Similarly, part of the reason why, like, I'm going to use a term here that's probably sensitive, losers. The reason that losers tend to congregate with one another is because they are very comfortable being around people who have all that awkward, nervous energy, people who are, equally as kind of misfit as they are. So when they're around people like that, they feel very comfortable. It's so hard for a quote unquote loser to step up to a beautiful person and connect, because their energies are totally different. All that the loser would have to do really is just shed some of that concern and walk up and be grounded, to use your term, Brian. And that changes everything. So for me, when we're going after one of these women in sexpionage, it's all about observing and understanding where they are, their energy, their status, and then meeting them where they already are, so that you can gain their trust and disarm their concern.
This is interesting. So do you ever find, I got a couple questions to add to that. Do you ever have to take on, for lack of a better term, a lot of lower status behavior, and really play it out when you go to meet somebody? You're like, I gotta act more insecure. I gotta be more nervous to talk to this woman, to seduce her or something.
Yeah, so a lot of the behaviors that we actually adopt for first contact, something called a bump. For anybody who gets to come to some of our future events, we'll teach you how to bump a stranger in the spy style. But a lot of the things that you do for that first bump is you do adopt whatever, to use your phrase, Brian, lower behaviors they have. So if they're a scumbag drug dealer or scumbag weapon smuggler or whatever else they might be, if they're a human trafficker, you don a cover identity that's consistent with what they're used to. So you're smoking cigarettes if they're smoking cigarettes. You're using the same swear words they're using. You're participating in whatever else they're participating in, right? Whether they're sitting around, gambling, or whether they're going to brothels or whatever it might be, you're adopting their behaviors so that you can quickly fit in and assimilate into their group. It's a kind of a core tenet.
Yeah, this is interesting. The pickup community used to call it demonstrating lower value, and they'd say DLV. They say if you come in, there's DHV, demonstrating higher value, and then they would say DLV. And they would say that if you went in and you demonstrate higher value until you feel like you've done it too much, and now you DLV to come back down and match that point. I don't like to use those terms because it's associated with the pickup community. So, but I like to do it more naturally, just feeling that vibration and adjusting, opening up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the other one, this is if you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but are spies required to get sexual, or do they get asked to get sexual? I mean, I'm super curious about that.
Yeah, they're not required to. In fact, it's because we're Americans and American citizens and we work in an American government organization. It's very, very strictly and repeatedly emphasized that sexual activities are not part of the job description, right? You are not mandated to flirt or have sex or sexual relations or any kind of sexual conduct, because you are an individual and you have your own individual personal freedoms and your own individual personal rights. That said, there are still plenty of people who go down that road for operational reasons, or frankly, because they make bad decisions, right? We were talking about how the burnout happens. They get burned out, they get used up, they get kind of spent because they're disposable resources. It's a sad story whenever somebody gets so burnt out that the target they're pursuing ends up becoming their future employer or their future girlfriend or their future husband or boyfriend or whatever else it might be. But it is one of those scenarios that's not as infrequent as you would think.
So it's interesting. You remind me of a guy I met. I knew him from high school, and I hadn't seen him in years. Saw him in a car lot. He was doing being the finance manager, and he told me his life story. And he had become a cop. He became a highly decorated cop. He became an undercover cop that was doing a lot of drug stuff, and he was hanging out with all these drug dealers and taking them down. And he had become a lot like them. He said. He said it took up his whole life, and he ended up in this really nasty shootout where he got shot. And he said, then after that, he goes, I used to have 6-pack abs. I used to be super fit. I used to he says, I just want to get fat and old. I want nothing to do with that life ever again. It's just, he says, and he had a big belly now. And he's like, and I am never touching the gym again a day of my life.
Wow.
It was interesting.
Liberated though. Yeah.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, he was happier working in the car lot now. That's just, he was done with that life. So back to that burnout idea. Okay, let's take a couple more and then see what we got here. Somebody's asking you to go over while I'm looking for the next question, somebody's asking you to go over those books again, or just rename the titles of those books you mentioned.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So there was Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. There was Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And then there was Moscow Rules by Jonah Mendez and her husband, John Mendez. I'm not quite sure what her husband's name was right now.
Okay, awesome. And then this one's an interesting question. A lot of guys have this problem when they're talking to women, to be honest. Andrew, how do I deal with worry and paranoia in stressful situations? And this is the part I thought was interesting. Sometimes I can't tell what's true or false. And I think he's talking about when he's in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ricky, it's a great question. So, again, when we talk about a neurotypical person, meaning someone who is who's not autistic, somebody who's not kind of mentally disabled, someone who hasn't been diagnosed with a specific mental health disorder, whatever it might be, a neurotypical person, what worry and paranoia really boil down to is a devaluing of objective fact and an overvaluing of subjective feelings. So objective and subjective are two pieces of this, right? Subjective means that it's what you feel. Objective means it's something that can be counted or observed. So oftentimes worry and paranoia, we're taught worry and paranoia spring from when your feelings dominate over your rational mind. So you start worrying or being afraid of something that isn't actually there. And that's what leads, because feelings are so strong, because the right brain is so powerful. The right brain actually has a shortcut to your amygdala, which is the center of your brain that's designed to keep you alive with fight or flight. So because the right brain has a shortcut to the amygdala, the feelings triggered by the right brain can make you feel like something is real, even though it isn't. If you've ever walked into a dark room as a kid, or if you've ever walked into it's almost Halloween now, right? So anybody who goes to these haunted houses or haunted farms, right? You are genuinely scared. You are genuinely afraid of getting hurt, even though objectively you know it isn't real. Objectively, you know they can't touch you. There's not going to be a real chainsaw that's going to cut you, but subjectively, your right brain just floods that amygdala with fear, and it feels very real.
Or the first time you jump out of an airplane.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's, they'll say, oh, this is safer than driving down the freeway. You got it. No, you're not. That's not true. I'm jumping out of an airplane. You're crazy, But the first guy that ever went, let's say you had a guy that never gone faster than riding a horse, and then he gets in a car that goes 65 miles an hour. Let's say he could suddenly do that. That would be probably insane to him,
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, slow down, son. Okay, I'm gonna jump to this one. This one's from a guy named Meat Heavy or Met Heavy. I don't know what the actual term, how he pronounces it. Is it possible to? It's just an interesting question. I want to hear from the CIA's perspective how you release pent up emotions when because as you're going along, do they even teach you processes to deal with stuff that's bothering you? how to keep it from building up in your body as you do your work.
Yeah. So, in this specific question, is it possible to release sexual shame by sharing a sexual fantasy with a woman that you're attracted to? So the idea here is essentially that somehow you're going to be able to release sexual shame by giving it away. We're actually taught that doesn't work, because in our world, in every human being's existence, there's three lives. There's a public life, a private life, and a secret life. Public life is something I think we all already understand. It's the mask that we put on. It's the uniform that we put on before we go out in public. You want to appear confident. You want to appear smart. You want to appear like you give a fuck, whatever it might be, right? That's all part of our public life. It's easy to understand what that is. So what's private life? Private life is the life that you know is true, and your closest peer group also knows that it's true, right? This is the group that understands that you don't like going to the gym. This is the part of the group that understands that you like, cheesy 1980s sitcoms. This is the group that knows that you're a closet sci-fi nerd. That's your private life. Publicly, your coworkers don't know any of those things, but privately, your closest friends do. But when you start talking about sexual shame, what you're actually talking about is your secret life. Now, inside your secret life, you don't let anybody into your secret life unless you trust them almost explicitly and unconditionally. It's very, very rare that we have more than one or two people in our secret life. So can you release sexual shame? Because that sexual shame lives in your secret life, does not live in your public life or your private life. So if you're dating a girl that you're attracted to, or you're not dating a girl, but you are still attracted to her, if you try to bring her into your secret life too fast, she's just going to freak out. She's either going to be unhappy with it, or even worse, she's going to enjoy it because there's something not right about her, right? But if you're talking about a long-term relationship with somebody that you love and someone that you trust, that you've built a long-term bond with, when you bring that person into your secret life, then there's the chance for healing, because then there's a place that's free of judgment, a place that's full of acceptance. It's two different types of people. So when I see this from Methevi or Methevi, whatever it might be, you're not going to release sexual shame just by sharing a sexual fantasy with a woman you're attracted to, but you could release some of that shame sharing that fantasy with somebody who is in a committed, loving relationship and accepts you for who you are.
Yeah, somebody you trust. And
Mhm.
yeah, we do a sexual transmutation workshop. We just did one, and it has a lot to do with bringing women that are trained over time in us, where we work with your deepest fantasies, your fears of what you're exposing, but none of them will ever freak out when you tell them stuff.
Mhm.
They'll talk to you. They'll listen. If you say something really dirty or nasty, it's not. You're gonna see that they're not. They're just gonna smile. They're gonna be fine, and they're gonna
Exactly right.
listen, and has a huge effect. But not every human being on the planet is gonna be that way with you. So I think that was great advice. Okay, I got one more fun one. We're gonna end on this fun one. I'm super curious what the answer is. I think I lost it. Okay, here it is. I'm assuming when he says they, I'm thinking he means the CIA.
Mm.
Do they ever touch on things like energy or chakras or other esoteric like ideas, since they often seem to share qualities with things like social cues?
Yeah, so I think this question actually came about because they may be seeing some of what's over my shoulder here, right? Some of
Uh,
my East Asian stuff. So the agency does not put a lot of stock, value, or training into teaching us why things work. They teach us what to do, and they teach us how to do it, but they don't really teach us why it works. So when you're talking about energy and chakras and esoteric ideas like beliefs, a lot of times those things are based in the why first and the how second. So instead,
yeah.
they skip through all that and they just teach us what to do and how to do it. It's not until I mean, for me at least, it wasn't until my journey took me out of CIA that I started looking into why and how. So why do I have, Buddhist paintings and Chinese artwork, and why do I have my Russian nesting dolls back here? Those are all prizes from the places that I've been, less so anything that has to do with lessons or beliefs that I've carried in my existence.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I think that would be very detrimental to the CIA to teach that stuff. Because next thing you know, you've got this agent who's starting to meditate and open his heart chakra and starting to work on emotional trauma, and then boom, he can't do his job.
Exactly
Yeah.
right. Or he volunteers to stop doing the job. So you just
Yeah.
put $2 million into training into this resource, and they just voluntarily self-selected to leave because they don't
Yeah.
want to carry that energy anymore.
Crazy. Yeah, it's a very important point. Well, awesome. It's awesome having you here. This was actually a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. If we had time, I would love to do another one before the event, but we're getting close and things are coming up, so we'll see what happens. Um, and just remember, everybody, that Andrew will be speaking at the Integrated Man Summit. I'm going to put a link. Everybody, check it out. It's in the chat right now to the page for that. Coming up in November, the first weekend of November. He's going to be speaking 3 days, giving lots of information. He's going to be one of the key speakers, tearing it up there. He tore it up last year. Everybody loved it. So I know he's going to go deeper this year, and he's going to go, and it's going to get a lot crazier this year. So if you want to meet Andrew, you want to hear some of the stuff that he doesn't and can't speak about on camera, then definitely get out to the event. And hey, you're going to be at a beach by the beach with beautiful women. The hotel that we're speaking at is right on the beach. Beautiful women everywhere. It's going to be an amazing time.
So Brian, let
Uh,
me apply. I want to pile on one thing because we learned this last year at Tim's. The Everybody has questions during my lectures and other people's lectures too. Everybody has questions. The people in the room, all they have to do is raise a hand and we call on them and they get their question answered. The people that are tuned in on the phone, I mean, inevitably they're the ones that just don't get that kind of engagement. We do try to do our best to get as many questions from the phone as we can, but there's just an advantage to the people who can raise their hand and the people who can, like you said, who can come up to you during the break, meet up with you over, lunch or coffee in the morning or the afternoon. And there's just such a richer experience for the folks who get to have not just those conversations with me and the other coaches, but those conversations with the other men in the room. So it really is a strong, strong reason to come out in person. If you're in doubt, come out in person. Don't just spoil yourself, treat yourself. It's been a rough couple of years. Get the hell out, go to Miami, see some beautiful women, have the time of your life at Tim's. It's a great time.
and then we also do some work off camera. There's typically a section with the coaches where we take questions and teach some stuff off camera. So you don't want to miss any of that. Trust me. And definitely, yeah, treat yourself, man. It's Miami. This is I love going to Miami every year. I look forward to it. I get so excited about it. And so it's going to be an amazing year. Anyways, what I want to do is ask, well, you already answered. You already threw your 2 cents in. I always like somebody to throw something in at the end. Is there anything else you want to say besides talking about Tim's?
If you want to learn anything about me, anything more about me tonight, or when you watch this video, or on your way to Tim's, go ahead and just check out my website at everydayspy.com. Or if you want to give yourself, kind of treat yourself to an exam to see what kind of spy you would be, if you go to everydayspy.com/quiz, QUIZ, then I've got a pretty cool little personality MBTI based quiz right there for you that'll tell you how CIA would rack and stack you and where you would most likely be operating if you went out to the field. So head over to everydayspy.com/QUIZ quiz and take that exam and take that little quiz for yourself.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure having you as always. And if we can, I would love to have you back before Tim's. Like I said before, don't know if we'll have enough time. It's coming up fast, guys. But if we do, I'll definitely be in contact. And this was a lot of fun and an awesome interview.
Awesome.
So for everybody out there, have a beautiful night, and I'll see you in the next